Hey folks, recently I posted a video on this project I'd been working on, a reading log project for educators to collect data about what books their students are reading. I've modified this quite a bit, and so I'm posting again. First of all, the setup remains the same. You need to get the template ID of the student template, the folder ID of the folder where you're going to store all of the projects, and the slides template ID. Now this is a new feature where when a student finishes a book, the teacher can run a script that will automatically create a presentation template for the student and import the book name, the student name, and a few other items. The roster part works the same. You put in a roster of students and their email addresses, and when we run the script, the first script, create sheets, and it will create a sheet from the student template for each one of your students and give you the URL here so you can open those up. This part also then does a calculation of the summary, which is the weekly summary, and the archive summary, which is all of the work that the students have been doing, and just gives you an output here right on this roster page. A new feature of this is presentation. So now when a student finishes a report or a book, you can run a make presentation script from the teacher sheet, and what that will do is create from a template, it'll create a presentation. It'll populate the book title, the author title, and the name of the student. It'll populate the date the book was started by the student and the date it was finished. Again, the book title and the author. And the rest of it is left up for you to design. What do you want the student to report on? I've come up with a couple ideas: setting, characters, plot. Have the students be creative and use some drawing tools and slides presentations to draw a scene, and maybe some other things. So that would be the template, and again, you collect that template ID. That template ID is what goes in here when you collect that. Just an FYI, IDs are always the part of a URL that starts after the D/ and goes all the way to the slash before the word edit. You need to make sure you grab all that. Little trick, if you double click that, you can grab most of it, but if there is something like a hyphen, then you have to drag across. Be sure to get all that. Okay, so here's our teacher sheet, roster, presentations. We talked about summary, and we did this in our last video. You could go back and look at that. This pulls in the data from each sheet. It also then, this script, the archive script, takes the data from here, adds it to this data. So before you modify and delete this data, you want to archive it. And then it automatically builds charts for your weekly chart on how your in my case, three students are doing, and a cumulative chart based off of the summary archive. And then there's also a page for us to look at by person. I can see which books these different students have started and go ahead and see what the last chapter on that they read, and that's a formula that uses the max function, and then a sum function to see how many pages they've read in each one of these books. So that's the teacher sheet. And again, we have these scripts create the sheets. You archive the previous week. You get the new weekly summaries. You clear the student sheets. After a week is finished, the student sheets need to be cleared so they can start a new week. And then at the end, make presentations. Let's take a look at a student sheet. In this case, this student. Again, here's their reading log. They're reading this book on these days. This is all automatically populated, by the way. This is a drop-down menu of the books that you're including in the book list. And it's also, you need to match that book list with the teacher list. And in fact, I think there is a book list in here. Let's see. I guess we do not have the book list on the teacher sheet. So where you would modify is you would modify this on the student report template is where you would build the book list. And I'm looking back at this and saying, yeah, there is no book list on the teacher's main sheet, but it is on this. So you would modify this with the books you want to read. So here's what this template looks like. Let's go back to an actual student sheet. In this week, the student was reading this book. This is automatically populated, by the way, with a array formula VLOOKUP. So it looks up this book, again, from this book list. We got the author there, and we can read and get the author just to automatically include it. Now the student just fills out this section here and the brief summary, and they would put in what chapter they read this day, how many pages, how much time, and then there's a weekly summary for the student to take a look at and see, okay, which books might they have actually been reading, and what is the amount of pages and minutes that they've read, and automatically making a chart. Helping to show your students how to build data reports on information that they're collecting. Now, when we get over here to the book list, students, when they start a book, should put in a start date, and this is a drop-down calendar menu. So they would put in the date. When they finish a book on that date, that automatically marks this as red and turns it green. So that is an automatic piece that happens. Now, the script that we run back here, this make presentation script, what it's going to do is, I can take a look at it here. Here's the big long script that does all this. But what it does is it checks to see if on the student sheet there is a check mark in column C. And if there is a check mark and there is not a URL here, then automatically the script will create a presentation using this template and fill in that data. So in this case, we can see that Sarah's got The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and she's got another one here, let's see, is Charlotte's Web. If I open it up, you can see it's automatically populated Charlotte's Web with the author and so forth. So then the script writes that URL to the student sheet, so they have access to start working on their project. And then back here on the teacher sheet, it also writes the sheet. So if we were to go back to Sarah's sheet, for instance, and put in a date finished on this Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and then come to my teacher sheet and run my make presentations sheet, this is going to run through, and it should add another Sarah Bolton. Notice also this presentation sheet gives me a list of what books each student has finished. Now, when that script finishes, it gives the teacher a prompt. It skipped 4 presentations because they've already been created, and it created 1 new presentation. Okay, great. So I can look here and see, here's the Huck Finn title. I can open it up from the teachers. There's Huck Finn, Mark Twain, or Sarah Bolton, all that information. Now, the book started, did not have a date. We didn't finish that. And you can see Sarah can also immediately on her student sheet open up her presentation. So again, just a quick summary. I've also summarized all of this data in a document where you can get to the original video, you can get to this video, you can subscribe to my channel, you can make copies of these 3 templates and go ahead and build your own system as you might need. If you do that, it'd be interesting to see how it works out for you.